Two title fights will finish out the 2023 calendar for the UFC. The main event of UFC 296, the welterweight championship of the world, is on the line as Leon Edwards will defend his title for the second time against Colby Covington, former two-time title challenger. Let's see if third time's the charm for Colby. And in the co-main event, the flyweights go at it in a rematch as the newly crowned champion from earlier this year, Alexandre Pantoja, will make his first title defense against someone he's already beaten, Brandon Raw Dog Royval. Let's get into the championship discussions for UFC 296. It took 8 years in the UFC and a 10-fight unbeaten streak for Leon Rocky Edwards to achieve his all-time dream to reach the epitome of the sport and dethrone one of the best fighters in UFC history, Kamaru Usman, in August of 2022 to become the welterweight champion of the world. And not only did he win, not only did he secure a huge upset, but he did it in a fashion that is so rare to see in this sport. Not that crazy flash knockouts are rare. We see them once a card, essentially. But the fashion in which that had happened, when Leon is down in the fight, all but over with until the judges read their scorecards to make it official. And he digs deep. One of the best all-time corner cameras in the history of the sport when Leon's coach tells him, you have to pull it out of the fire, Leon. You can't feel sorry for yourself. Boom. Headshot dead, in the words of Leon Edwards. He lands the head kick heard around the world. And then not only does he become the champion against one of the best to ever do it, but when they run the fight back in March of this year, Leon wins again. He proves that the first victory was no fluke, and he proved that he is as elite a fighter as you're going to get in the UFC, in mixed martial arts, because he beats Kamaru Usman via decision, outpoints him in all facets of the fight game. Yes, it was a majority decision, but you go back and watch the fight. Leon was the better fighter on that night. Leon is the best welterweight in the world right now. And the MMA math doesn't always work, as we've talked about time and time again on this show, but one man has 2 victories over Kamaru Usman in title fights. The other has 2 losses to Kamaru Usman in title fights. Colby Covington enters here at 35 years old in his third opportunity to achieve undisputed champion status, because yes, he has been interim champion in the past, but here we are. Third time's the charm. At least that is what Colby Covington is hoping for, because if you go 0 for 3 in UFC title fights, good luck ever getting back into the mix, at least of your weight class here at 170 pounds. But if anybody can do it, it is Colby Chaos Covington. The man is a machine. He is a workhorse. There's not many people that we see in the fight game that can keep a pressure and a pace like Colby Covington. He never gets tired. His cardio is unmatched. So how will that fare with Leon Rocky Edwards? We've seen that Leon has gotten just leaps and bounds better fight by fight. Teddy Atlas was talking about Leon leading into the second fight, where once you become a champion, you get 30% better. And I think it showed in that second fight with Usman when Leon was able to get the decision victory. But now it's a different fight. Kamaru is a great wrestler, a great grappler, but he does not do it in the same fashion. He does not do it in the same pace and pressure that Colby Covington does. Colby will come out from the opening bell and not let up until the final bell sounds, assuming the fight goes 25 minutes. It's going to be a hard fight for Leon to retain his championship, to prove he's still the best of the best at 32 years old, right in his prime years. Will he be able to do it against an opponent that also, outside of the cage will try to get in his head more than any other fighter has before? We're going to see. I'm recording this on Thursday early afternoon. We are going to have a press conference Thursday night, so I won't have any say here on the preview for it, but it's happening tonight. How will that go down? How will Leon fare with the trash talk of Colby? He held up well with Usman. He stayed mentally strong. And Colby's going to try and just nudge at him every bit that he can, throw around his catchphrases and all that stuff. Leon seems to be very stoic and confident. He seems to have all of the tools of a UFC champion, dare I say a long-standing UFC champion. Now, he has said a little bit in the lead up here that if he, or when he, in his words, beats Colby Covington, he has his eyes set on 185 pounds. That's more of a Monday conversation, but let's pump the brakes on that because welterweight's finally starting to churn and move again, the rankings, and people are fighting. And we are, even on this card, Shavkat Rakhmonov is fighting Stephen Wonderboy Thompson that we'll discuss. Let's hold off Leon a little bit longer on 185. Plus, I don't feel like he would be much of a middleweight. I feel like he has the perfect physique to just be here. He belongs at 170 pounds. He's perfect for this weight class. So we'll talk about that on Monday if he wins and if he brings that up in the post fight. But this fight right here, we have one of the best strikers in the division, one of the cleanest strikers, just so technical. And obviously, he has shown now that he has sneaky good power that he can just pull out of nowhere, quite literally. And Colby is the opposite. He's shown, let's even look at that Jorge Masvidal fight where he will stand and trade. He will get into a frenzy, a firefight with you. But that's in a way how he wants to close that distance and how he wants to ultimately get the fight to his world in the grappling, up against the fence with the clinch and down on the ground with his wrestling. And he's not going to stop. So Leon's going to have a lot to answer here to really show that he is toned in all of the facets of his game, all of the areas that he has to be sharp here. He's going to have to not fight perfect because we've seen that, Kamaru Usman didn't fight perfect and he beat Colby Covington twice. So I'm not saying Leon has to do that, but he will have to stay composed in the big moments. He will have to stay cool, calm, and collected. He will have to analyze this fight as it plays out, I believe. I think he's going to have to change on the fly from whatever their game plan may be, which obviously keeping it standing is a little bit too broad. They know here how they're breaking down Colby Covington. I'm sure they're very smart in his camp, and Leon as a fighter is extremely intelligent. But I think there's going to be parts of this fight where he's going to have to make a switch. He's going to have to get uncomfortable in order to achieve success throughout this fight, especially if it continues to go in rounds 3, rounds 4, round 5. Leon got tired in that first fight with Kamaru. Yes, it was in Salt Lake City, Utah, in elevation, and that was for sure a factor. But regardless, this pace that Colby will bring will play a role, whether it's minute or major. Time will tell on Saturday night. This is a big time fight. Like I said, I think it's Colby's last opportunity, at least at welterweight, to achieve championship status. So a lot of pressure is on him, a lot of eyeballs on him. He draws a lot of attention to his fights, for better or for worse. However you view him, he brings attention in. And so there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of eyes on it. There's a lot of pressure on Leon to live up to this kind of story that he's built around himself as the underdog and the guy that can just do the impossible. And I think he's finally starting to get the respect that he's earned and that he's been deserving of for many, many years. He is the betting favorite as we approach Saturday night, minus 166 to a plus 140 on the comeback for Colby Covington. And I'm not surprised by that. I've been pretty confident that Leon will win this fight. Will I put my money where my mouth is? Well, I'm pretty much in a betting hiatus right now until the new year for UFC because it was a tough stretch of events for me throughout 2023. But I have felt very confident ever since this fight got booked that the Leon that we've seen over these past, really just that decision victory over Kamaru said so much about how much better he has gotten and will continue to be getting. It's a tough fight for Leon, yes, but it's a tough fight for Colby too. I don't think it's just going to be a fight where he can ragdoll his opponent or land the craziest amount of strikes in UFC history like he did against Robbie Lawler. He's also going to have to be smart. He's also going to have to implement a game plan and adjust on the fly, and I think that's what makes this fight so great. We have two incredible combatants, a champion very much deserving of that status, and a contender, a challenger that has been there and done that before and done everything except reach the mountaintop in which Leon stands. And that is a great way to finish out 2023. Give me your predictions for this UFC 296 main event, the final UFC fight of 2023. Colby Covington, Leon Edwards, Colby's last hoorah to get a belt, Leon's chance to continue cementing his legacy and just how great of a fighter that he is. Give me all your predictions and how you think the fight will go down in the comments below. And now let's transition. Men's flyweight, 125 pounds, Alexandre Pantoja in the rematch with Brandon Royval. Will Pantoja make his first defense and go 2-0 against Raw Dog? Or Royval get revenge and become champion in his 8th UFC fight? If their first fight is any indication, and honestly every fight that happens at flyweight these days, then fasten your seatbelts for Pantoja versus Royval 2. Pantoja submitted Brandon Royval in their first fight back in 2021. Crazy that it's already been over 2 years ago since that fight. He's won 2 fights since, so not a ton of activity for the current champion, but great wins nevertheless. He submitted Alex Perez in his next outing, and then we saw earlier this year Brandon Moreno, the victory, a split decision, absolutely incredible fight where Pantoja had to dig so deep in order to get that W. He showed and proved a narrative wrong that he can dig, he can go 25 minutes, he can pull it out if he needs to. That dog, that dog that Royval's known for having, that Pantoja hasn't been known for having. Oh, he absolutely does have it, and that's why he's the champion of the world right now at 125 pounds. Brandon Royval's had 7 fights in the UFC since debuting back in May of 2020, and all 7 of them have absolutely been insane. Only one has gone the distance, and that was a fight with Rogerio Bontorin. In a fight that Royval should have gotten a submission victory, there was a bit of a tap that was hidden. I believe it was an armbar that Royval had on Rogerio. The ref did not see it, so he should have had a perfect 7-7 with 5 finishes in the UFC, but I digress. He's been looking great. He's been looking much more clean over this 3-fight win streak that he's been on. To get a big victory over someone like Matthias Nicolau, who is very methodical, slow pace, very technical, and just a great fighter, someone that is very underrated, and he knocks him out in 2 minutes, says a lot about how Royval can still keep that crazy fight style about him, but do it against someone that is known for being so clean. And here in this one, Brandon Royval has already kind of had some crazy quotes about the pace that he wants to set in this fight, and that he will just sink or swim in this one. He plans to come out guns a-blazing, which is what he always does. But like I said, it's been a little bit cleaner over the past 3. But this is big because not only is it his first title shot opportunity in the UFC, it's a title shot in which he can achieve revenge. He can avenge a loss that has happened 2 years ago, as I had previously alluded to. And not only that, you add in a third wrinkle in the fact that this can set up a third fight, a trilogy for a title. You add all that together, this is a pretty big recipe here that Royval can cook together to achieve big time financial success and professional success here in his career. And I think that's a lot riding on him, but he seems like the guy that wouldn't let the big moment get to him. He seems unbothered and just wants to put on a show for the fans. And I think having that type of mindset can take some of that pressure off. Obviously, he's going to feel it, as I'm sure every fighter does. But if he just approaches it with that mindset of just going out there, putting on a performance, putting on a show, doing what he knows best, and if that it gets him a victory, it also puts a gold belt around his waist. And I feel like here too, like flyweight just in general is probably the most underappreciated division in the UFC. It has been for years. It was literally on the chopping block for potentially being no such thing anymore in the UFC. And, credit to Henry Cejudo and Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno for bringing this division back to life and doing what they did. It was such a big deal, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. And now it's gotten us to a point where I feel like flyweight is in the best spot it's ever been before. Yes, we had Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse, one of the best to ever do it. That was a long-standing champion, 10 or 11 title defenses, unbelievable resume that he achieved. But now we have this just freshness of contenders mixed with a good amount of veterans. We have fresh faces amongst the top, whether they are younger or older. And the championship isn't playing hot potato, but it is getting past a little bit. We've had Moreno be the champion. We've had Figueiredo be the champion. Now we have Pantoja as the champion. And now it's Royval's turn to throw his name in that mix. And I just feel like it's very fresh. It's very healthy right now. And I love to see that for 125 pounds as we continue to move in to the new year with a lot of other fighters making their way up to title contention status. What do you guys think for this flyweight rematch? Will Pantoja remain and still as the betting favorite at minus 192? Or will Royval, raw dog, the underdog at plus 160, come through, achieve his mission to become UFC champion, set up a potential trilogy, and really just carry momentum into 2024 as the flyweight champion of the world, putting the division on his back and spearheading a new year? One of these guys has to do it. Let me know in the comments who you think that will be. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, this breakdown of the UFC 296 title fights, Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, Alexandre Pantoja versus Brandon Raw Dog Royval. It goes down this Saturday night, UFC 296. Give me all your predictions for the title fights in the comments below. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new so you never miss fight breakdowns like this, recaps, fight announcements, MMA news, and so much more. And I'll be back in the next video to discuss the other big hitters of UFC 296 because the party doesn't stop with the title fights. There's a lot of other action that's going to go down on the rest of the card. See you guys there.